Have you heard about the infamous psychotic mafia boss that strikes fear into the hearts of even the bravest individuals? Well, you're in for a treat, because we're going to reveal some of the darkest secrets surrounding this elusive figure. But first, make sure you hit that red subscribe button to stay connected with us for more captivating content like this. So, without any more hesitation, let's dive straight into it and uncover the mysteries behind the one they call the psychotic mafia boss. Anthony Casso, who was born and raised in South Brooklyn as the youngest of Michael and Margaret Casso's 3 children, had all of his grandparents emigrate from Campania, Italy to the United States in the 1890s. His godfather was Salvatore Callinbrano, a well-known figure on the Brooklyn docks and a captain in the Genovese crime family. At 16 years old, Casso dropped out of school and began working as a longshoreman with his father. As a young boy, he practiced his shooting skills by firing pistols at targets with his friends on a rooftop. Casso also earned money by killing hawks that preyed on pigeons for pigeon tenders. He was 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighed 185 pounds. Casso belonged to the infamous South Brooklyn Boys gang in the 1950s, and he was arrested in 1958 after a violent confrontation with Irish-American gangsters. At the police station, Casso's father unsuccessfully tried to dissuade his son from a life of crime. In the 1980s, Casso became one of the most savage mafia underbosses and hitmen in New York City. His rise in organized crime was driven by his extreme paranoia. He was willing to violate sacred mafia rules and kill anyone on the slightest suspicion that they might be an informant. Informants were Casso's most hated enemies. After being on the run for 3 years, Casso was captured as he stepped out of the shower. In 1993, he confessed to ordering the execution of an additional 100 people and personally carrying out at least 36 executions of individuals he believed to be informants. He didn't stop there. Casso became a government informant himself and was sentenced to over 500 years in prison at Arizona's supermax prison. He ultimately passed away due to COVID-19 in 2020. Anthony Casso was a notorious figure in the American Mafia, known for his brutal tactics and involvement in various criminal activities. Born in Brooklyn, New York, on May 21, 1942, Casso grew up in the Union Street area near the borough's coastline. As a teenager, he was a member of the South Brooklyn Boys gang and spent his time shooting birds from brownstones and tenement buildings using a .22 caliber rifle that he had modified with a silencer. Casso's godfather was a captain in the Genovese crime family, one of the most powerful mafia organizations in the country. Despite his father's warning to stay away from crime, Casso respected his father's past and took on the moniker Gaspipe after his father's reputed favorite weapon. In 1963, at the age of 21, Casso was recruited by the Lucchese Mafia family, the 3rd largest mafia organization in New York City. He began working for Christopher Furnari at the Brooklyn docks as a loan shark and enforcer for bookmaking. Casso quickly established a reputation for violence, and his dark sense of humor became apparent when he dropped around 500 pounds of cargo on a dock worker's foot, breaking most of his toes simply because the worker had mentioned wearing new shoes. Casso later joked that he wanted to test the quality of the new footwear. Casso was detained 5 times between 1965 and 1977 on state and federal accusations ranging from firearms assault to heroin trafficking. However, all of the cases against him were dropped because the witnesses declined to testify against him. Despite his run-ins with the law, Casso continued to climb the ranks of the Lucchese family and became a made man in 1979 alongside Vittorio Amuso. Together, Casso and Amuso engaged in various criminal activities, including drug smuggling, gambling, and extortion from trucking and construction companies. They also formed the Bypass Gang, with members of Furnari's 19th Hole crew, a safe-cracking burglary gang that by the end of the 1980s had stolen around $100 million. In 1985, John Gotti, a leader in the Gambino crime family, took over the organization by killing Paul Castellano, the current boss, without seeking approval from the commission, which was responsible for overseeing such actions among the 5 families in New York. This move infuriated the bosses of the Genovese and Lucchese families, Anthony Corallo and Vincent Gigante, respectively. Seeking retribution, they enlisted the help of Anthony Casso to retaliate against Gotti. Casso, together with Vittorio Amuso, discovered that Gotti had a meeting scheduled at the Veterans and Friends Club in Brooklyn on April 13, 1986. They rigged Frank DeSicco's car with explosives, but only managed to kill him as Gotti withdrew his attendance abruptly. After Corallo was found guilty of racketeering, Amuso became the leader of the Lucchese family and Casso was appointed as the consigliere. Casso felt untouchable in his new position and went on to personally kill or order the killing of anyone he suspected of being an informant. He even hired two officers from the NYPD, Louis Ippolito and Stephen Caracappa, to keep himself informed. These officers provided Casso with information about informants or pending indictments in exchange for a monthly payment of $4,000. Over time, they would also commit 8 murders for Casso. Despite the FBI spying on him, Casso continued to live lavishly, spending $30,000 on suits and accumulating a $1,000 restaurant tab. By the time he was promoted to underboss in 1990, Casso had already killed at least 17 people, including alleged informants in Harlem, the Bronx, and New Jersey. Bodies would either disappear or turn up in car trunks or garages, even as Casso was constructing a $1 million mansion in Brooklyn's Mill Basin neighborhood. In May 1990, Casso learned about a racketeering indictment against him from sources within the NYPD, and he and Amuso quickly fled. Amuso was later apprehended in Scranton, Pennsylvania, a year later, while Casso arranged for Alfonso Darko to become boss and took on the role of underboss while secretly managing the business. However, Darko soon realized that Casso was not concerned about the increasing number of informants, was continuing to ruthlessly kill people. Darko reached out to the FBI out of concern for his children's safety, and Casso, in turn, tried to have a federal prosecutor and judge killed in 1992 and 1993. Ronald Goldstock, the director of the state's organized crime task force, attributed Casso's rise to prominence to the instability in the families. Doran, the head of the FBI's New York Criminal Division, described Casso as crazy rather than intelligent and promised to catch him. Federal investigators eventually apprehended Casso on January 19, 1993, as he was leaving his mistress's house in Bud Lake, New Jersey. Casso pleaded guilty to 72 criminal charges in 1994, including 14 gangland killings and racketeering, and provided information about individuals like NYPD policeman Ippolito and Caracappa to secure a plea bargain. Despite being in federal jail, Anthony Casso was accepted into the Witness Protection Program, but the agreement was terminated in 1997 due to corruption and violence, leading to his expulsion. In 1998, a federal judge sentenced Casso to 455 years in prison for multiple charges, including racketeering, murder, bribery, extortion, and tax evasion. While serving time in 2009 at United States Penitentiary Tucson in Arizona, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Anthony Casso's death was a tragic end to the life of a notorious and feared figure in organized crime. His diagnosis with COVID-19 in November 2020 was a shock to many, but it was made even more heartbreaking by the fact that he was already in a wheelchair and struggling with respiratory issues. Despite his poor health, Casso appealed for compassionate discharge, hoping to spend his remaining days with his family and loved ones. However, a judge denied his request on November 28, 2020, leaving him to continue his battle with the deadly virus alone. As the days passed, Casso's condition worsened, and he was eventually placed on a ventilator. His family members and friends watched helplessly as he fought for his life, hoping for a miraculous recovery. Sadly, Casso passed away on December 15, 2020, leaving behind a legacy of violence and crime. Casso's death sparked mixed reactions, with some celebrating the demise of a notorious criminal, while others mourned the loss of a human life. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts and opinions on the topic. And if you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content.